Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Yash and today I'm going to talk about writing proposals that sell, and it'll include primarily tips on the structure, copywriting and visuals of creating your own proposals. Before we get started, a little bit about me. I'm co-founder and chief executive at Clientjoy, where we help agencies and freelancers grow. I did my mechanical engineering from NIT Surat, and then I worked as an investment banker for a couple of years before starting my own IT agency. We grew that IG agency from a 3 people team to a 50 people team. And at Clientjoy, we've powered more than 10,000 proposals. And so, in that process, over the last 5 years of running an IT agency and then starting Clientjoy, I've had some amount of experience in terms of writing proposals that actually close deals, right? A little bit about Clientjoy, as I shared before, we help agencies and freelancers grow their business and manage their clients. We're primarily one place for agencies and freelancers to manage their leads, proposals, clients, invoicing, and payments. We're currently helping about 3,100 plus agencies in 90 plus countries, and we're primarily a vertical software as a service that's helping in growth for agencies and freelancers, right? So that's a little bit about Clientjoy. This is primarily what things that we'll be going through. So the first is we'll understand a little bit about what a proposal actually is and what are the different types of proposals. Then we'll move to what's the structure and what are key characteristics and elements that a proposal should have. I'll also share with you some proposal writing tips. We'll also talk a little bit about how you can reduce your turnaround times from the time that you had your first conversation to the time that you actually get money in the bank. And then I have some free resources for you to use and kind of start on your journey of writing proposals that can help you close deals faster. So what is a proposal, right? And so one of the misconception about a proposal, it's that as soon as you send out a proposal, it's supposed to be signed and it's a closure document, right? More often than not, it's not true, because if you look at it as a closure document, it essentially implies that the potential client that you are sending the proposal to already has all the information that they need to have about you, your company, your offerings, anything and everything that involves that is a part of this particular project, right? Which not necessarily is true. And so a good way to look at a proposal is that it's an argument. And when I say argument, I don't really mean it in a negative connotation. An argument primarily means that you've got to write the document in a way that it makes a compelling argument as to why should the potential client that you're sending it out to, why should they investigate more, why should they spend more time, why should they get on a call with you, why should they negotiate, why should they essentially look and take this document seriously, right? And so it's a good way to look at writing and designing proposals, if you look at it from the point of view that it's going to be an argument and not necessarily a document that leads to closure right away. And and if you are sending it as an argument, then each and every proposal is primarily supposed to tell a story, right? And that story has to be why and how will this particular project be a success for that particular client if this proposal is accepted, right? And so what this means, and this is something that we'll cover a little later on as well, is that every proposal that you send out has to be catered for that particular project for that client, and should include success metrics as well, and it should be in a story format, right? And so it should be in a story format that does compelling argument for this project and that client and success. And so let's move on to understanding a little bit about what are the different types of proposals. So while there are a lot of different types of proposals, they can primarily be divided into three classes, right? So first is formally solicited, second is informally solicited, and the third is completely unsolicited, right? So formally solicited is basically where you're creating a proposal based on an RFX, which could be an RFQ, RFP, or an RFI, which is request for quote, request for proposal, or request for information. More often than not, when you are replying, when the proposal is a reply document to an RFX, there's a good probability that the client or the customer already has a very good idea in terms of what is it that they want, and down to the nitty gritties, down to the details, right? I'm not saying that there's no scope of changes. There are always changes, and things always tend to improve and evolve over a period of time. But in case of an RFX, typically when it comes to you, you actually are required to respond to their requirements rather than actually work with them and build a requirement document, right? The second is informally solicited documents, right? So proposals, right? So which is primarily where you had a conversation. So let's say there's some client that, or potential client that you met at an event, or kind of was introduced to you by an existing client, and they want to get something like a website done, or a logo designed, or some sort of a copy written for themselves. And so in those cases, these proposals have to be written basis the conversation that you had with a potential client or a contact, right? And so this is the kind of proposal that you have to write, where you got to, this is primarily also the kind of proposals which is what we'll be talking about in this session as well at length. But more often than not, for an agency and freelancer, this is the case, right? And then the third one is unsolicited, right? Which is where, let's say, if you're offering itemized services, things like, let's say, SEO audit or design audit or server audit or whatever those case may be, you kind of have a proposal of sorts embedded on your website that a client visiting your website can check out and sign, and then make a token payment or something to that effect. And so this is, or you've created a proposal for sponsorship for a particular event, where you are essentially sending it out to a lot of people at once, right? And so in these cases, you have absolutely no idea what client requirements are, what are the things that they are looking for. You only know what you can offer, and so this is kind of a spray and pray thought process. And so that's a third kind of proposals, right? So these are the three primary types of proposals. We're going to be talking a lot more about informally solicited proposals, which is creating a proposal basis a conversation that you had with a potential client or a contact, right? And in those cases, what you do, because unsolicited ones, in those proposals, you are basically talking about what you are offering. And in formally solicited ones, where you have an RFX, you're basically saying, hey, you already have a good idea what you want, and this is what I'm going to charge you for it. So it is the informally solicited proposals that require a lot of design thinking, and a lot of tips and tricks in terms of writing it in a compelling way that leads to closures. So if you're writing, sorry, a solicited, informally solicited proposal, then this is typically what its structure should be, right? So it should be broken down into three key aspects. So the first is introduction, where you have, your title, your table of content, your introduction statement, your executive summary, and stuff like that, right? This is primarily very, very factual in nature. And so this is just something that you can write once, and then it can just kind of be used over and over again in all the proposals that you write. But this is the factual aspect of it. The second is where you are kind of trying to make that argument why this proposal will be successful, why this project will be successful if the client chooses to work with you. And so this is where a lot of customizations come in, for the proposal for that particular client, for that particular project. And so you want to talk about the project. You want to include, what is the scope of work according to you. You want to include social proofs, add testimonials from similar projects that you may have done previously. You may also want to add assumptions and caveats, and so you may also want to show that in case these things become true, then these are the outcomes, and these are the things that are beyond your control. And you also want to have the pricing table as a part of this aspect. And it is important to refer to the price as an investment and not necessarily as a cost. So if you position it as a cost, then that's how the client is also going to perceive it. And so if you position it as an investment, the client already, or the potential client already, starts thinking in terms of the return on that investment that they can get out of working with you. And the third part is conclusion. This is where you're trying to share with them that, if we work together and if these things are what we are able to achieve, then we'll call this as a success, right? This is how we measure success. These are the success metrics. And then you have a closure argument, and you give them next steps. So what is the call to action, which could be, let's say, in some cases sign the proposal, in some cases it could be answer some of the questions that we may have as an agency, or in some cases it could be, let's say, open up a comment or a discussion, or something to that effect, right? And so it's important to look at any proposal and divide that into these three aspects. So introduction, which is primarily factual in nature. Overview, which is where you're making most of your arguments, where you're talking about that project, where you're talking about that scope of work. You're showcasing testimonials and previous cases of similar projects. You're adding assumptions. You're talking about the investment that you expect the client to make. And the third is where you explain to them that these are the metrics basis which we'll know whether we are successful or not, and what's the next step, and then you close off that particular proposal, right? these are these four are key elements of any proposal that you write. So the first is that it has to be customized. If it has been informally solicited, if it is based on a conversation, whether it has happened on LinkedIn or WhatsApp or email, or call or a meeting, whatever the case is, if you had the opportunity to speak to that particular contact or lead or client, or whatever the case is, then there's no circumstances under which a proposal should go out that is not customized. Because if you're sending out the same proposal to everyone, it means that nobody is able to relate to that particular proposal. We'll also talk about relatability a bit later, but it has to be absolutely customized. The second thing, as I said earlier as well, is to add proof, right? Since we are an agency or a freelancer, and our no matter the service that we are offering, it's fairly subjective in nature. So whether you are designing, or whether you are offering website development, or whether you're doing, let's say, digital marketing, and running ads, or SEO, SEM, whatever it is that you're doing, the key characteristic of that is the fact that it is very subjective in nature. There will always be other people who may be able to undercut you on price, because there's no price standardization as well. And so you want to include as much proof as possible. You want to give confidence to your future client in your proposal itself, that you are more than capable of executing the project that they are asking you to work on, right? Or they may be evaluating different vendors to work on. Value is so the third key aspect, or third key element of a proposal, is to showcase that you're able to deliver value. And so it's important for you to explain to them that this value will come in what form. And so there are different ways in which people or entities or clients can perceive value. And so it's important for you to identify and explain and spell it out, that this is the value that we bring on the table. And so good example of value is that, apart from the scope of work that you have agreed to as a part of proposal, what are some of the other key things where you are able to also contribute to that particular client or that particular project. The third thing is ROI. And it is very easy, and probably, kind of, it's fairly easy for you to write a proposal in terms of efforts and not outcomes, right? And so a lot of times what might happen is, you may end up saying, we'll do 5 social media posts, we'll do 10 blogs a month, and we'll do 5 graphics a month, we'll have a website with 10 pages, and so on and so forth. Now, when you say 5 social media posts a week, it does not mean anything to the client, right? They do not understand what is the return on investment, because you are asking for money from them, and you are delivering your effort. You're not delivering outcomes. And so this is also something that we'll cover in next slides. But make sure that your proposal is having a conversation with your client in terms of ROI, in terms of output, and not efforts. And so talk about what their return on investment will be if they choose to work with you. Another thing about including these elements as a part of your proposal is also the fact that when you talk about, when a proposal is customized and when it has proof and when you're talking about value and when you're talking about ROI, it also puts you in a light that is much different than other people who might be sending out the same proposal to everyone, who might not have done similar work for a potential client, who might not know or understand or implement things like value and ROI in their proposal, right? So this kind of helps you stand out significantly, and it is super important in an industry of offering services and being an agency or a freelancer where there's no standardization in terms of price. And so potential client will look through the proposal for these key elements for them to be able to trust you, and for them to be able to have a metric that actually works for them. So here are like four key writing tips. The first is, in an effort to show how intelligent or how forward looking we as an agency are, um, or specialized we as an agency are, we may choose to include a lot of jargons, right? So we'll talk about ARPU, we'll talk about CAC, we'll talk about CRO, depending on what kind of an agency you run. But if you're talking about all of these things and if the customer is not going to understand, then there's no point of saying these things. It's important to remember that if you write in jargons, that doesn't mean that they'll think that you are experienced. If you write in jargons, they're just having to work that much harder to just understand the words that you have used. And here's a good way to think about it, right? If you look at non-fictional novels, right? Sorry, if you look at fictional novels, then you will see a lot of long sentences that have a lot of adjectives, right? So you look at, let's say, A Song of Ice and Fire, and you'll see, because they want to transport the reader to a different world that doesn't really exist, and so they'll write really beautifully structured sentences and things like that. However, if you pick up any business book, right, so you pick up The Lean Startup or Hard Thing About Hard Things, whatever, they'll always have short sentences, and they'll always be as simple as possible, because the goal of a non-fictional book or a business book or a business document, much like a proposal, is to communicate what you mean. It's not to sound intelligent, it's to communicate what you mean with as less effort as possible. And so if you know that your potential client is not going to understand those jargons, then just remove and replace them with simple terms that those are easier to understand. The next tip is please do not generalize, right? Do not talk about industry numbers or market sizes. They have been in the market doing whatever it is that they are doing for far longer than probably you have been doing what you are offering to them, right? And so don't talk to them about things that they already know about themselves. So talk very, very specifically about them, about their organization, about their offerings, about your relationship with them. So don't talk about the market or industry standards or industry numbers. Just talk about yourself and them. The third is be as relatable as possible, right? And so it's super interesting that when you relate with the person who's actually reading a document that you've written, things actually become a lot simpler and easier for them to understand. They subconsciously feel that the person who's written this document and sent it over actually understands my pain, right? And so if you are relatable, it actually adds a lot more character to the proposal that you sent across. And the third, which is something that we've covered earlier on as well, is do not talk about efforts. So talk about efforts as little as possible. Just talk about benefits that you will be able to render to them. And also try, if those benefits are not vague, try that if you can quantify those benefits in numbers as much as possible, right? So the three other key tips in terms of how it should be. So make the proposal as spacious as possible, and make it as, use a lot of white space, make it as high contrast as possible, and make it as visually appealing as possible. People like to read things when they look beautiful, right? And so there are a lot of different examples. And so reading things on Medium is easier than reading things on some play on Reddit, as an example, right? And so make it as spacious as possible. Be generous with the white space. Second is be brief. There are absolutely no marks for writing long answers or for writing sentences that are not required. So the brilliance of a good proposal is to take everything that is not required out of the proposal, right? And the third is, this is something that we at Clientjoy have seen working time and again. I don't really have an explanation as to why, but we've seen this working time and again, which is if you as an agency or a freelancer offer options to the client, and then along with that also end up sending the option that you recommend, then it leads to a much faster conversion, right? Because then the thing from the client side is to choose from the three options that are presented to them, versus having one proposal and then replying to them and not really knowing what is the benchmark, right? And so offering different plans, offering different modes of engagement, offering different pricing possibilities, or payment possibilities. So offer them options, limited options, and highlight which one is really good for them. That also goes on to show how much time have you spent on understanding what their requirements are and what their projects are. Then the next one, which is super important. So one of the things that kind of kills an agency or a freelancing practice is the turnaround time. So turnaround times from which primarily refers to the time it takes from the first conversation to money in the bank, right? And so a lot of times what might happen is that you may have a first very interesting first conversation, and then for the next couple of weeks they are super highly engaged with you as an agency or freelancer, but then just something gives way, and it's just not the same anymore. They are not responding to your emails and things like that, and then probably 3 months later they'll come back saying, hey, we had this conversation some time back, let's reignite that conversation. And so having higher turnaround times actually leads to revenue that is not predictable. And as an agency, you always want to strive to generate predictable revenue. And so reducing turnaround times has to be a key metric that you should work on whenever you are sending out or writing a proposal. And so here are four quick things that you can do to reduce your turnaround times, right? So use templates, right? Create your templates. Most proposals have 40% things that don't change, right? So about your company doesn't change. Certain aspects, other aspects, so in terms of, let's say, founding team, what is your mission, vision, all of those things do not change from proposal to proposal. And so use templates along with merge fields, so that you are able to customize each and every proposal that goes out, but at the same time you're able to do it far quicker than you would have been able to had you been writing all the proposals just by yourselves, and writing them up from scratch. The second is more often than not, you'll not receive responses on proposals right away. And so track the proposals that you sent out. If a client has viewed your proposal, then that is the absolutely right time for you to follow up, right? So as soon as the client views the proposal, you receive a notification, and then just call them up, or send out a mail, or send out a WhatsApp message, or whatever the case may be, and then do a very gentle nudge slash follow up. The third is follow-ups. So more than half of all deals, they close between 7th to 13th follow-up. So we may follow up. In my earlier journey, when I was heading sales for the IT agency that we used to run, I would follow up twice, thrice, four times, and then I'd just stop, right? Because I think that I should not follow up more than four times. They'll get back to me if they want to. We had a pretty wide funnel at the top. So like our top of the funnel was very wide, and it was giving us quality leads. And so I never focused on following up. But then one of the things that I realized over a period of time is that fortune actually lies in following up. So you want to create automated follow-up, so you don't have to manually do that. and then it will just keep on following up with your client over different channels, over LinkedIn, over email, over WhatsApp, whatever the case may be. You can set up those automations, and then just rest easy, right? They'll hopefully get back to you between the 7th and the 13th follow up. The fourth one to reduce your turnaround times is e-sign the proposal that you send out, right? So instead of sending out a PDF document that they download, sign, scan, send it out back to you, and then you download, sign, scan, and do the whole kind of a loop. Just send out a document that can be e-signed, and so that will end up reducing your turnaround times by a lot. So, moving on to resources, here are four resources that I wanted to share with you. There's a fifth one which is a really cool one, but here are the four resources. So the first is Unsplash, right? So copyright free, high resolution photographs makes your proposal look super beautiful, right? Second is Undraw, from which you'll be able to find illustrations both in SVG and PNG. That's available completely for free. Include those in proposals as well. Third is Canva. This presentation itself has been created on Canva. It's super simple, easy to write and choose fonts and spacing and stuff like that. And then the fourth one is your younger sibling. So give the proposal that you create. Give your proposal to a younger sibling of yours, or to someone who doesn't belong at all in your age group or in your industry, and then see if they are able to understand what proposal you sent out, right? Whether they are able to make sense of it. There's a good chance that even though the client has reached out for the thing that they want, they may not understand a lot of the things that you have written in your proposals. And so having a third party who has no connection whatsoever with what you do, and having them go through the proposal and share with you whether this is something they understood or not, is a super smart, simple way of figuring out whether your proposal is simple enough for people to understand or not. Here's the fifth and bonus resource for you. So one of the things that we've seen at Clientjoy is when people create proposals on Clientjoy, they're able to reduce their turnaround times by over 18%. And one of the other things that we've done is if you go onto the link that is clientjoy.io/proposal hyphen templates, you'll be able to get 25 plus free proposal templates that are into accounting, event management, inbound marketing, web design, interior design, and so on and so forth. You'll be able to use all of these proposals within Clientjoy, or you can download them as PDF and then convert your proposal into these. And these are absolutely stunning, beautiful, battle tested proposals that have been created using Clientjoy, which can help you. Even though you may not use Clientjoy going forward, it may help you in designing your proposal so that they end up closing more deals for you. Last but not least, with Clientjoy, you can e-sign proposals. You can create your own custom templates. So you can write that 40% of the proposal that doesn't change, and use merge fields to insert, client names. You can use merge fields to insert client business name, and so on and so forth. You can include and implement itemized pricing tables. You can track opens of your proposals, track activities, so you can follow up. You obviously have email as a part of Clientjoy as well, and so you'll be able to send out emails to them and follow up. You'll be able to convert your proposal to invoice as well, right there and then, so that the customer, as soon as they sign the proposal, they can receive the invoice and make payments as well. You can run Clientjoy on your own custom domain, so your own agency's website and its custom domain. You can also add custom scripts. So if you want to have a chat with your client while they are going through the proposal, you can implement a chat script of talk.to or intercom or whatever the case, whatever you're comfortable with. And it works on all platforms. It works on web, mobile, whatever browser. It works everywhere, right? And so it's very simple, super proposal builder, and sender signature, all of. So you can create and edit and sign and execute proposals, all of that within Clientjoy. And it also comes with a sales CRM, a client portal. You can also raise invoices, and you can also collect payments. All of these things happen within Clientjoy itself. If you use the code Agora20, you get 20% off on Clientjoy for life. Right? If you're not going to do that, here are a couple of other things that you can do. You can join our Facebook community, which is a community for agencies and freelancers where they ask questions, share solutions, give answers, and just have good, entertaining, educational conversation and discussions on the community. So come to facebook.com/groups/clientjoy. At clientjoy.io/universe, we are building the largest resource library for agencies and freelancers. So 25 plus proposal templates, as I already shared. We also have email templates, graphic design packs, business documents, all of these things available on clientjoy.io/universe completely for free. Or you can listen to more talks like these where I have invited people in the agency business who've been there, done that, talk about their experience, talk about the mistakes that they made, the solutions that they implemented. And that's available on clientjoy.io/podcast. And you can listen to more entertaining talks like this. It was a pleasure sharing all these things regarding proposals that I have learned over the past 5 years of me creating and sending proposals, and then building a product that helps other people not just send proposals and sign them, but also manage their leads and invoices and payments and clients and everything in one place. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I'll see you soon. Bye bye.